I hereby call the City of Lloydminster Governance and Priorities Committee meeting Tuesday, February 20th, 2018 to order. At this time, we will take a silent moment for personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. Again, I also remind members that this meeting is for discussion and information gathering only. All decisions will occur during regular council meetings. Thank all of our presenters for their time. Moving on to the agenda. Item number 2. The approval of the agenda, and I'd like to see that first.
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. We have a few deletions to the agenda. One is 4.4. One of the presenters has submitted a cancellation to administration, so they will not be attending. Item 5.4, the Forey Avenue rehabilitation, is removed, as well as 5.8. Neil Edmonds stormwater access agreements to be brought, and both of those to be brought forward at a future meeting.
Thank you, City Manager. I'll ask City Council for direction on the amended agenda. Councilor Buckingham.
Move the agenda as amended dated February 20th, 2018 be approved.
Seconder. Councilor Torres. Any further discussion, comments? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda item number 3, the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Left to council for direction. Councilor Buckingham.
To the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting dated January 22nd, 2018 be approved.
Seconder. Councilor Torres. Any further discussions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is number 4, public presentations, but that's slated for 2 p.m., so we'll just return back to 2 p.m. when our presenters are present. And we'll move on to item number 5, which is administration presentations. So 5.1 is Saskatchewan tax enforcement. Up to the city manager.
Scott Purdy will address this item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
The subject matter for this information report is the Saskatchewan tax enforcement update. Some background is that the October 30th, 2017 regular council meeting, administration obtained approval from council for the Saskatchewan Land Arrears List and authorization to proceed with enforcement in accordance with the Tax Enforcement Act of Saskatchewan. At the time, there were 113 properties that were in arrears. The list of land in arrears was advertised in the local newspaper, and administration continued to work with the property owners to obtain payment of the arrears, including contacting other interests registered on the title. The assessment and taxation team has made positive progress from the initial list and was able to substantially reduce the number of liens that had to be registered. On January 29, 2018, administration submitted the attached Form A to Saskatchewan land titles to register tax liens with 17 titles in total, which would represent the remaining 15 Saskatchewan properties that had arrears. Administration will continue to work with these property owners and their mortgagors to obtain payment of remaining arrears. Also at this October 30th, 2017 council meeting, administration obtained authorization to initiate steps to apply for title on 3 Saskatchewan properties that had tax arrears remaining from January 2017 tax lien registration. To date, administration has received full arrears payments for 1 of these properties and continue to work with the remaining 2 property owners to obtain the remaining property to arrear payments prior to expiration of the 6-month notice that was sent in November. It is expected that both remaining properties will be paid and have tax liens removed prior to the next steps of tax enforcement. Pass back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments for Scott? Certainly, this is a process that we go through annually as council, as we go through this. Landowners that have not fully paid their taxes, Scott, is that the issue that we usually see?
That's the issue. So we brought it down from 113 Saskatchewan properties down to 15 at the time of writing this. We've actually had 2 more paid late last week, so we're down to 13 property owners now that still owe arrears. We'll continue to work with those property owners.
Okay. Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. I only have a comment, just that it seems as though the process is working, and that's, good to see that as we, as more hoops are put through to try and, get people to pay up and pay their share, that it seems as though we're whittling down the number of people outstanding. So good job on sticking on it, because it seems to be working.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's really important that what you've been doing, Scott, is working with folks, because as much as we think that everything should happen instantly, some people are struggling. Your patience in working with them is the goal. As far as I'm concerned, it's not how tough we can be. It's working with people and making sure they can retain their properties and their homes, and I thank you for that.
Any other calls or questions, comments? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.2, the Regional Emergency Management Mutual Aid, City Manager.
I'll ask Ernie Paulson, Manager of Emergency Management Operations, to present.
Good afternoon, Ernie. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, members of Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to chat with you a little bit about Regional Emergency Management Mutual Aid. I'm working currently on a number of mutual aid initiatives, actually across the region and across both provinces. There's a large communities group in Saskatchewan that's working to bring together the planning, training, and information sharing capacities of the various communities together on a large mutual aid arrangement. We're working on a local emergency management mutual aid as well. This is not talking about sharing fire trucks and firefighters, although that may be part of it. This is really talking about how do we work together as a group of interested municipalities and jurisdictions to come together when one of us needs help. The reality is, as we have observed through numerous major events that have hit both Alberta and Saskatchewan, from High River in the south to Fort McMurray and north to southeast Saskatchewan with their floods. The reality is that none of us are big enough to do this on our own. We need to be working together. We need to be closely connected. And the best time to come together for that is long before an emergency event occurs. There are a number of really good reasons beyond that. We share a common interest in each other economically, regionally. Our neighbors, our co-workers, our friends, our families are all part of this greater context. So the really interesting agreement that we're working in, kind of where I want the worship council to be aware of, is we're working on a large-scale regional mutual aid agreement. This is kind of the key to the whole package. What this agreement recognizes is a number of key principles. First off, this is not about providing free services to others. This is about sharing resources and recovering costs for the sending municipality. These are best effort agreements that don't absolutely commit us to responding, but do provide a vehicle and a venue and a methodology by which we can share resources effectively with each other. It provides a vehicle for training and experience, information, and standard practice development together, so that when we do need to come together, we actually know how to work together and deliver services. This regional agreement, well, it started actually, frankly, with conversations with the Arm of Manitou Lakes and some of our neighbors, has really rapidly grown to encompass much of northwest Alberta and northeast Saskatchewan. So northeast Alberta. I'll get used to living in the south. Much of this part of the country north of the Northwest Territories and quite a bit south, actually, into some of the other rural municipalities. The purpose of this is to spread out the ask. If we're having a major event in our city, for instance, the likelihood is it will affect our neighbors very clearly. They may share that. They may not be as available for a response as we would require. Secondly, none of us have got huge depths of capacity to donate large groups of folks into the mix. So that ask needs to be spread out much further afield. Hence why we're looking at a very large regional construct of some sort. The agreement has actually seen the light of day in several of our partner jurisdictions, councils. We've been talking broadly from our regional municipality with Buffalo to as far south as Stenlac and on the Saskatchewan side and NDA Wainwright. I think it's still the NDA on that area. So we really just wanted to present that for your information and answer any questions you might have on where we're going with that.
Council, to you for any questions. Councilor Monroe.
When you say we, is it the EMOs of each of these municipalities that are working in collaboration, or what team is at the table making these arrangements?
Thank you, Your Worship. It really is kind of a hodgepodge right now. We haven't formalized a formal working group. This really did start as a very local conversation between the EMOs and some of the administration. We've had a little bit broader regional meetings that's involved some of the CAOs. We do need to formalize a work plan that engages the CAOs for the various jurisdictions and their senior EM emergency management people to make sure that we've got everybody on page and sort that out.
So is this broadening towards community members as well? So for healthcare, or are we just sticking it right to the EMOs? I'm not entirely sure. Like if it's an emergency preparedness plan for a regional basis, should we not have everybody engaged that would be at the table for that?
Through Your Worship, yes, absolutely. It's kind of the eating the elephant type of analogy. We take it one bite at a time. The municipalities have the jurisdiction the municipalities have the jurisdiction and responsibility under legislation to deliver the program. So we really need to get the municipalities on board and on side. We see a significant role for emergency social services, and likely that will be the largest need in terms of sharing, as we saw through the evacuations of Fort McMurray.
Right. So no agreement has been signed?
No agreement has been signed. We are really in a formative process. That agreement, for it to be signed, would have to come back to council for consideration and evaluation.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councilor Clegg.
Yeah, and we do have a local emergency committee here right now for the local side of things with many of the nonprofits and any of those that would be needed if there was an evacuation in North Battleford. We could be set up here currently on a municipal side of things on a local basis, but this is much more regional, and I think that it's a great idea. You can never be too prepared, and you see what happens in the high levels and the Fort McMurrays, and you take a look at Lac La Biche, how ready they were within a day they were able to. I think they could have got maybe 5,000 people, but they didn't have everything. The Alberta government didn't come through with a few things there. So I think it's a great idea, Ernie, and I think we need to move on. You never know what can happen.
Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it's a very positive step. You know, I had the fortune of meeting with a gentleman that you know, Ray Unruh, in Suma, and he gave a presentation to all the councillors that were in the room, based on what is an emergency and what is a disaster. And it was kind of enlightening to watch people that aren't in that industry kind of see what he meant. An emergency is what our fire department responds to when they're called an ambulance or whatever. A disaster is not an emergency, it's a disaster. It's something totally different that requires extraordinary things that we can't handle. So this type of thing is a great pre-planning idea. Of course, you never want to have this stuff happen, but when it does, and if it does, you have to be ready. So good on you for getting this going as far as it has thus far. So.
I would echo those same things. I guess the word I use is the groundwork is being laid for a potential agreement, and you're starting to seed those seeds, and as a farmer would to start to make something happen. I appreciate that very much. I think that the area you've covered is indeed a good area to represent our communities. We do share a lot of things. Frontenac is a different locale. In one way, we are a city, and as you said, no city is prepared for disaster. We saw that with the Murray wildfires. I think the fires in the southwest part of Saskatchewan and southeast Alberta. I think that larger area we can draw from, and if that's organized, I think anyone that's been involved in fire or emergency understand that the more resources you can draw from, it's easier to put less strain on each of the resources along the way. So I think that I would fully support it. So thank you so much for the information. If anyone else has any other comments, I'll finish off and say keep up the great work. I look forward to seeing you giving administration ourselves as you proceed forward, and I think it's an excellent opportunity for the folks on the Alberta side. There's inter-collaboration framework being done on a regional basis next door to neighboring municipalities, and this just helps foster it. And I think this fits very well. So good luck with your efforts and keep up the great work, because I'm sure our regional partners do want to make sure that we all realize none of us can handle this alone. So the sooner we can get together and work together as a group, we'll be in much better shape.
Thank you, Worship.
Moving on to agenda item 5.3. It is ESRFP from 2017-2, Geotechnical Material Testing Service Agreement.
I will call on Brendan Shaw to present this item.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. So the Geotechnical Materials Testing Service, information report here. Material testing is a necessary part of the construction process for quality assurance and ensuring the materials used will lead to structures that will meet their design life. Some background: engineering services issued a public request for proposal for geotechnical materials testing services in January 2017. The standing offer agreement was awarded to Solid Earth Geotechnical Incorporated in January 2017. Sorry, I'm losing the spot here. Standing offer agreement was awarded to Solid Earth Geotechnical Incorporated, Inc. at February 27, 2017 regular council meeting for the term of 1 year with an option to extend 2 additional years. Each year, the cost of services may be renegotiated and has a limit adjusted to account for foreseeable capital construction. The scope of the work for this agreement includes conducting geotechnical investigations, material testing for soils, aggregates, concrete, asphalt, etc., consultation, and provide advice to the city's project manager during design and construction processes, and reviewing test results to ensure contractor compliance with city specifications. Material testing is a very important part of construction as it ensures that the final product will be durable and will last its design life. Geotechnical investigations involve boring/drilling of roadways or other project areas and analysis of subsurface conditions. Prior to engaging in geotechnical investigations, the city is provided a proposal for the work. If the city does not believe that the selected consultant is able to complete the work on time, or if their estimate is too high, the city has the right to request proposals from other firms. The objective of establishing the standing offer agreement for 1 additional year is to continue services from a proven geotechnical consultant on city capital projects. And we hope that you accept this as information only. For budget implications here, costs incurred under this agreement will be applied to the capital project for which the work was completed. And environmental implications. The geotechnical consultant may identify any potential contamination or environmental issues of the site through a geotechnical investigation prior to construction. Solid Earth is also a qualified environmental consultant should those services be required in an emergency situation.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Forrest?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question about this because I don't recall this from the MSA, so I'm just looking for clarification. So even with an MSA, there's still a proposal required for every project that we have them do? Is that correct?
Sorry, can you?
No, is there a proposal required for every project that they work on? Because that's the way this kind of sounded to me, even though they do have an MSA, so they've already got the work, so is it kind of a first right of refusal type of thing?
Thank you, Councillor Tarzan, for your worship. We procured them for signing off agreement to cover all of our capital projects, and we only requested proposal for our geotechnical investigations, borehole drilling, something that's a major item, standard testing procedures for asphalt and soil densities and whatnot. That's a part of each project.
Okay. No, that answers my question. So the extra proposal would be for additional services over and above the regular soil testing that they would be doing.
That's right.
Okay.
Can you clarify?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just to excuse me, add some clarification into that, we secure geotechnical services through Solid Earth to do all our materials testing. So when asphalt's going down, they're testing the asphalt, making sure they're in their spec. They're doing density tests for our ground. So those are common procedures that happen on every project, and they're procured to provide those services on every project. Where we would ask for additional pricing would be an extensive bore log or drill program required for a capital project that wasn't part of the service agreement. And at that point, we can review those, or we review those, and typically go with Solid Earth as they are our geotechnical provider, but we do ask for additional costing if required.
Perfect. So then my only other question is, and it's not saying that anything is wrong or we should do anything differently, it's just a general question because we more or less, I presume, increase the volume of work that they'll have based on the fact that our street improvement program, our water and sewer program, our 40th Avenue rehab are all much bigger programs in the past. Could you get better pricing based on volume now if you were to renegotiate and not renew it this year? Because the volume is significantly greater and based on our direction, it looks like our programs are going to be larger moving forward because we have so much road to do. So would it make sense to renegotiate based on the volume of work that we're doing?
So that's a great question. When we did the review, or when we put the RFP out, it was based on average year of number of density tests, number of Marshall tests and those things. So we did get fairly competitive pricing on a per test basis, and that's how they invoice. Would that be a fair statement?
Okay.
So I believe we have fairly competitive pricing from a per test basis.
Perfect. So long as the volume isn't a question that you could get better pricing, but if you're saying on a per test basis is how it's done anyway, then we're probably in the right place already.
That's how they evaluated the
Yes.
position.
Councilor Baker?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't remember what the rates were last year. It doesn't matter right now because there's no chart here to compare. You know, we're saying we could renegotiate or we could use the same prices as last year. I don't know what they were, but are we saying today that whatever we do, if we extend this contract, they're going to do it? Whether it be 40th, with the sewer and water project, it's all inclusive. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to make sure.
Thank you, Councillor Baker, for your worship. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Every capital project that has been budgeted for geotechnical purposes, Solid Earth will be conducting all of it.
Okay, so they take the good and the bad. If they get a lot of work or not so much work, the price is the same.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Good.
I don't think I'm clear on this, but I want to make sure I am. This is a 1 year, what you're requesting is a 1 year extension, not just for 2 more years. It's got 1 year under the belt, extend 1 more year, and maybe back at this next year again one more time.
That's correct. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to agenda item number 5.4 was withdrawn, so we move to 5.5, 2018 traffic signal project. City Manager. We'll get back on again.
Thank you. So this is for the 2018 traffic signal project. To upgrade, the topic here, to upgrade existing traffic signal hardware in accordance with the 2014 traffic signal assessment and construct new traffic signals at 59th Avenue and 25th Street. Background, the 2018 traffic signal project will consist of 2 main components: traffic signal hardware upgrades, which involve pole replacements at the intersection of 44th Street and 62nd Avenue, our busiest intersection in the city, and LED upgrades to traffic signals. And then also for traffic signal installation at 59th Avenue and 25th Street. The traffic signal hardware upgrades, so in 2014, the city retained a consultant to conduct an assessment of all existing traffic signals and half signals. The assessment highlighted several signalized intersections that should be upgraded. These upgrades include pole replacements, bulb upgrades, improved backup capabilities, upgrading older models of controllers to newer controllers, upgrading older models of cabinets and housings for the controllers. The 2018 traffic signal project aims to utilize the allocated budget to address the need to replace aging traffic poles at 44th Street and 62nd Avenue as per the 2014 report. The intent is to replace the poles with larger masts to eliminate the need for existing medium traffic poles, which pose a safety hazard and have a history of being struck. The project will also include the upgrade of traffic signal heads to LED bulbs at 2 intersections that have yet to be determined. Locations of these LED upgrades will be based on a combination of information from the 2014 report and collaboration with the Transportation Services Department. Traffic signal installation, detailed design from 2015 College Drive widening design project for the 4-lane widening of the roadway included a multi-lane roundabout as an ultimate solution. It was established that in the interim, traffic signals will provide an acceptable level of service until traffic volumes grow to warrant for widening. The intersection of 59th Avenue and 25th Street is currently warranted for traffic signals based on 2017 traffic volumes. As part of the 2015 College Drive widening design, 2 preferred options for traffic control at 25th Street and 59th Avenue were developed to cater to projected volumes for the year 2035, including traffic signals at this intersection and a multi-lane roundabout at this intersection. A request for proposal has been issued and posted on CoolNet over Purchasing Connection, SAS Tenders, and on the city's website to retain an engineering consultant for design and construction management. Construction is expected to take place in June 2018 and completion estimated for August 2018. The objective is to maintain the main objective of 2018 traffic signal project is to improve functionality of existing transportation infrastructure. We hope that you accept this as information. Some budgetary implications here. This is an amalgamation of 3 approved capital budget projects. From Transportation Services, they had an LED traffic light upgrade budget of $50,000, as well as the traffic signal hardware upgrade project awarded at $650,000, and traffic signal installation at 25th Street and 59th Avenue for $450,000 for a combined project value of $1,150,000.
Thank you. Council, for any questions or comments? Yes. Councilor Ryan?
On 44th and 62nd, as far as the actual controls go, or the lights themselves, we had some discussion previously with having a double red light or forcing it so you can't make a left-hand turn on a green light, it would be a solid red light. Is any of this new software or hardware going to contain that type of a system?
Thank you, Councillor Fagan, through your worship. At this time, there are no plans of upgrading to 2 solid reds. We would have to go through further investigation to determine if that is required or needed at that intersection.
So would that be something within the software that they could just do an upgrade and you could get that, have that solid red? Do you know? I'm just kind of curious.
Yes, that is something. The signal head would likely have to be replaced, especially in the center median. The center signal head would need to be replaced to add that extra bulb to show the double reds. That is an option that we could upgrade to that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just
Maybe it's getting a little far out, but when we look at lights on College Drive, 25th to 59th, there's going to be the question asked, well, nobody comes either way. I know it's no matter what we do, it's never the satisfaction of everybody, but will we have the technology that potentially, that if someone pulls up to that intersection, it will notify a sensor, if I can use that terminology, in the asphalt or whatever it is, to let people know that we don't need a red light, we need a red light going on College and letting people on, and then once they're gone, it'll be green light, because people often ask, why do we have to sit in red light when there's no one in an intersection? Will that technology be proposed in that intersection in particular, I guess?
Thank you for the question. That is a very good question. Most of our intersections, there are still some intersections that do not have that type of detection. We will be planning for camera detection. The camera doesn't record any video, but it does have a software that detects the presence of vehicles and gives green time to the primary direction.
Excellent. I think that's, we're looking for some sort of technology. I think is what I've heard from people saying, well, what are you going to do that's going to work better than what we have existing today? Technology, that's a wonderful thing. So hopefully make most people happy, satisfy everyone in that intersection.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's one of those important ones that people kind of take for granted. There's a large influx of 805 residential coming out of there. There is a large amount of traffic coming out of the College and McJulie Theater, depending on the show and so on and so forth. And I think a few of us have probably sat there a time or three waiting to try and get out of that intersection. So I think in the long run, this will alleviate a lot of that and increase safety at that intersection.
I guess the other question I'd have is, are we going to have some advanced warning lights on the College Drive as well? Because we've got a lot of heavy trucks moving, especially grade to the canola crushing plant. So if they're coming around at 60 kilometers an hour and they've got a brake, we may need to make sure that we've got those advanced flashing lights on both sides, just because there's oil trucks and everything else that's involved. Like you said, we do get anything moving south through there, and that would be a concern if we don't have those advanced flashing lights. It may be built into that project. I hope it is being considered.
Thank you, Your Worship. That will be considered. That will be an item that our engineering consultant will definitely have to account for. I presume that they will be installed as there are advanced warning flashers at the intersection 36th Street as well on College Drive.
One last one from my perspective. I see the proposal. I think we can all anticipate future growth. There's no question about our city. We've seen that in the past. So if we install the traffic lights today and in 2035 we decide that a roundabout, or council today decides that we're going to roundabout, I would suspect we'd be able to utilize those lights somewhere else in the city. It wouldn't be tossed away. That we'd lose the infrastructure in the ground, of course, the wiring and that, but otherwise we could move those lights so it's not that just throwing them away after we're done at 12 years.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's a very good question. That is correct as well. That anything underground is likely to be throwaway, but everything that you see above ground will be able to be reused in another location.
That'll be an interesting roundabout when that comes in 2035. I don't plan on being sitting here for that job, so I don't worry about it from that point. Anyone else have any other questions regarding the project? Is that, I guess the last one, time frame, it is budgeted, so it should, we plan to deliver that this year in construction season 2018.
Yes, that's correct.
And that would be done in 1 year, and we shouldn't have to have a delay unless we run into something very major that we would expect.
That's right, yeah, this project should be completed by end of August. Any overruns, I would suspect, would be able to be caught in the extra month or two that we have of decent weather for construction.
I like that planning. That's awesome. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Councilor Baker?
Your Worship, we're doing some upgrades on College Drive South, and we're talking about, in this report, you mentioned, maybe it's in the report, roundabouts.
In the future, the engineer.
That's what I'm worried about, the future.
Future.
What is the future in the eyes of, I mean, I realize is it out 10 years, 15 years, 5 years? What are you looking? Because there's $1 million+ being spent here.
450 on that intersection.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
the total package, I didn't try to go into the detail, but I guess if we were going to do something in the next 3 to 5 years, should we spend all that money down there now, $500,000, or not? It's just, when's the break point to say yes or no? Like, if you're going to be changing it soon, or I was under the impression somewhere along the line, and Dawn, you can help me if you may, please, that the widening from, I don't know where, South College Drive northbound was going to happen sooner or later, and subject to financing, of course. Did I get something messed up there? Can you help me?
It's a fantastic question, and I think it's something that administration and council needs to establish as we develop our 10, 15, 20-year overall capital plans. It's not on the radar in the near future. When we look at this intersection, there was a preliminary design done to look at the widening and the requirements at the intersection for traffic flow. When the report came back, there was 2 recommendations in there. We can look at a 4-lane turnabout in that intersection, which would support the traffic flow through that area. Or alternatively, we could put a traffic signal in there to be more of a conventional intersection for that. As we've seen, significant development has come on in that area. South of the college, in the areas of College Park and Lakeside. And with the amount of traffic going to and from the college and the theater, the intersection has warranted a need for an upgrade. At this point, we're not prepared or don't see the value in putting the 4-lane turnabout or roundabout into consideration. We feel this will be an interim solution for 10, 20 plus years, depending on the ability. We're not looking at going in 2 years and widening it and throwing it away or anything like that. So this is an interim to last for some time into the future. And when we do go to that full build out on College Drive, the city will still have the option to look at a conventional intersection there or the roundabout that was in the proposal for the overall plan for that. So we still have some decisions to make on the future of that road. I don't think this project really impacts the ultimate plan for what we're doing there.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. If it was 5 years out, I would just be wondering, put in signal lights and then decide to put in the roundabout or where we go, and then the lights would be obsolete. Is that the right thing to do? That's where I was coming from.
Absolutely, Councilor.
But if it's 10 years out, fine, like, prorate the cost, it's $450,000. For argument's sake, it's $50,000 a year to have lights there, and it's not a big deal, but if it was, I just wondering, because there was some discussion, couldn't remember what was in detail.
Senior Manager Engineering Terry Burton just gave me the hand signals. It's at minimum 10 years, so it'll be 10 plus years before we're looking at upgrading that intersection.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
You.
I think you've got through the engineering tasks that you were assigned, and I see you weren't originally on the agenda, but well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving to the city manager, 5.6, the East Drainage Channel Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll call on Craig Anderson from engineering to handle this.
Good afternoon, Craig.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Councilors. So this afternoon, I'll be presenting information on the East Drainage Channel Rehabilitation Project. So we, the Engineering Services Department, sent out a request for a proposal on January 19th, 2018, requesting the services of a consulting engineer to help us with design and construction management on this project. Now, as a bit of a background, if I draw your attention to the appendix, the photos in the appendix, the East Drainage Channel is located east of 40 Avenue, and it conveys a large portion of the city's storm runoff and snowmelt to the Neil Lake West. In the fall of 2011, due to excessive erosion in the channel, east of the wastewater treatment plant and north of 67th Street, the city used articulating concrete blocks in an effort to strengthen the channel and to prevent future erosion. However, if you take a look at photos 3 and 4, you will see that there were some problems. We started seeing erosion starting in 2013. At photo 5, after a significant rain event, there was major erosion on the channel banks. So what we have done in this request for proposal, we will be seeking to get a consulting engineer who will be designing a permanent solution and doing construction management for this project. This consulting engineer will be responsible for administration of the tender and all associated documents and processes. Now, following the design and tender period, the engineering team anticipates that construction may start as early as July and is expected to end by September 30th. The objective of this project is to determine the reason why the failure started in the first place and to implement a long-term solution to stop and prevent further erosion of the channel. The option that we present to you is that the committee accepts this information, this report as information. The budget for this project, the capital budget that was approved is $1 million, and this will be used for engineering services, geotechnical services, and construction. The environmental implications of this project, if you take a look at photo 1, because this channel is subject to such large flows and velocities, then it can cause severe erosion to the channel bed and banks. And if you take a look at photo 1, you'll see how close cell number 2, the treatment cell number 2 is to the channel. So if we do not strengthen this channel, we may have a very bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Questions? Councilor Monroe.
I have no idea how any of these things kind of work. So is there warranty? So if someone comes in and does this work, and then, or is there no warranty when it comes to environmental for erosion and that sort of a thing?
Thank you, Councilor Monroe, through your worship. For each project, we do have a warranty of 2 years.
2 years.
On the project.
So when those mats were put in 2012, it looks pretty good then, right? So had it been a year or two and we started the erosion, like this summer, 2014, looking downstream, already this isn't looking very good for photo 3. Could we have not implemented some sort of a warranty at that point?
If this project was done in 2011, then by...
Oh, sorry, I thought it was done in 2012, just with the photo.
Yes,
But
it
it
was
was
done
done-
in 2011. It was done
Oh,
in
okay.
2011.
But so there is a 2-year window if something starts to,
Yeah, you're correct, Councilor Monroe. And we did have some issues come up after construction, and we did bring a contractor back and try to remedy those. Part of the bigger problem here is there is significant amount of flow, 90% of the city's flow comes through this area. The channel prior to 2011, prior to the repair being done, was in utter disarray. It was all over the place. When we came in and redid that, there was a lot of material hauled in, put down. Native ground is harder to erode than replaced and packed ground. So I think the amount of work that's already been done in that area, the amount of flows that go through there, the grade difference between the outfall and the bottom of the channel. So you can kind of see in the picture that's up there now, where it comes out of the pipe that crosses the road. There's, I don't know, what is that, 5 to 10% strict grade that the water flows down until it hits the bottom of the channel and kind of meanders to the north from there. So there's some velocity issues that started causing the blocks to lift, and once they start lifting and eroding and the water gets under it, it goes from there. So we have surpassed the warranty period.
yeah, for sure.
We did do some remediation in that time period, and Terry can verify that, but we do see a major issue happening right now that we need to look at a permanent solution. In particular, the first 20 to 40, 50 meters where the velocity is increased due to grade difference.
So with this new permanent solution, do we see it, the life expectancy, we're hoping not to be at this again in 5 to 6 years. We're hoping that it's going to be something that can take us long into the future.
That is always the intention.
Right, but
And yes,
Ultimately.
if I may on this one, that's one of our main goals on this one, to figure out what happened in the first place, and that will be part of the design to prevent it from happening again.
great, just let me reiterate, I don't really know anything about this, so that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Councilor Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd love to step into a world that I don't know anything about also. So, just as far as this project, my only question is because I heard executive managers say that 90% or so of the water comes through this, and we plan on having construction season July through September. Where's the water where is that 90% gonna go? Is 100% gonna have to flow through the other channel?
No.
Or do we have to divert it somewhere through the construction?
Thank you, Councilor Thorson, through Your Worship. The dates that we have here, I just put it as may start as early as July 2, based on the timeframes that we have, but we do not have to start at that time. The plan is to start in early fall.
Yeah, because to me, like winter would be, or like late fall, winter,
Late
when there's
fall.
not as much rain, would be more ideal when you got all that water coming through. It sounds really.
There's other cost implications to winter. When we built it originally back in 2011, we put up a pump diversion, so we basically pumped around our work area. So we blocked it on the north side of 67th Street, installed pumps, pumped it around our construction area into the channel. So there's lots of ways of us dealing with the water, and there's emergency overflow situations that we look at and deal with that through the construction.
Okay, perfect.
Councilor Torres, and then Hugh, Councilor Buckingham, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I look at this and I hear from people over and over again. I heard from people this weekend after seeing the agenda come forward. So we're talking about 90% of the stormwater coming through. Does it currently inhibit the water from going down there, therefore causing backups in certain parts of the city when we have significant rain events? And will this alleviate a little bit of that? Because that's a major concern for a lot of people, or certain areas of the city have been very prone to flooding. Does this actually help the flow? Because I can just see it backing up. And I've been told in the past between this and the Neely Evans, the projects we have to do to fix those and get them flowing better will alleviate that back pressure. Does this project speak to that alleviation as well?
Okay, thank you, Councilor, for walking me through the worship. The main bottleneck for this project would be the culvert that the water has to go through. We are going to look at the capacity of the culvert just to ensure that it has enough capacity to take what's going through. And if it is not, then we'll look at an upgrade for it.
So I think you're looking for, Councillor, let's chime in on this. The channel itself, from what everything I've seen, is all downhill. So there is some implications up, and as Craig mentioned, that culvert might be 4,200 millimeter, I believe it is.
24.
Yeah. So that's, you've got to take it to 6,000 or 5,000 because there's some other work being done throughout the city this year above this, if I'm correct. Will hopefully help that this isn't, there's, if I use them very carefully, there's several challenges. That's the word I might use to describe water drainage. And we're going to be addressing several of those this year.
Yeah, there's this east drainage channel, there's the northwest drainage channel that we're working on. I just was curious as to, if we're starting down there, will it alleviate some of the back pressure coming back?
Yeah, I'm gonna add a little more context to that. That channel has had significant improvements over the last 10 plus years along the way. Culvert upsizing at specific points along the way. Just verified that with Terry when the 2011 project was done. The sizing of that culvert was looked at and it was felt to be appropriate. That's something we can definitely look at under this project as well, just to verify that the crossing at 67 is sized appropriately. But I don't see it being a bottleneck to the stormwater system as a whole to the city. And then Terry also made one correction that I misspoke on. The original project was a 1-year warranty, not a 2-year warranty. And the original repair was conducted by the installer who put that original infrastructure in. So we've gone through 1-year warranty. We had some revisions done to it after that 1 year, but this is far beyond any warranty that we may have.
That's great.
Thank you, Richard. I guess, and I was aware of it sometimes, and I always have a fear of the potential for damage to the cell 2 of the wastewater treatment plant. Hopefully that's good solid soil that will hold, but in any case, it's got to be done because of the environmental issues attached to that. What I have a question on, the Neely Lake drainage channel, or whatever you want to call it, Neely Lake channel. Everybody uses it. We use it to the west, and we pave in our top lands to the west of our city. Our neighbors are sending water down through our channels. Is there some kind of cost arrangement agreement to control all that, or do we get stuck with the bill?
Great question.
Well, it's a regional thing, and
that was going to be my response, Councilor Raker, is that's a regional thing that I think we need to have discussions with our neighboring partners on. Currently, any capital work we do within the city that's approved in our capital funding list is funded either through the city coffer or any grants we may receive. As far as I know, we don't have any specific funding for specific capital projects, but that's something we can look at through our city manager with our neighboring partners.
Your worship, if I may, for the follow-up question. We did set up a stormwater management feed project a year ago, give or take. I can't remember all the detail, but what do we call it again?
Stormwater utility.
Yeah, stormwater utility, whatever. And this is all, in my mind, part of that stormwater utility. How you spend it, that's up to management to figure that out. but it was a fairly substantial tap onto our taxpayers. And I think that report should be brought back to council for those that haven't had an opportunity to read it, so they can really see what's going on with the stormwater. And it's a very serious issue, as you all know. Whether it's flooding, it's probably near the top of the priorities, along with your wastewater treatment plant, your worship. But I think we have to, if we're going to keep developing around our city, and those waters are going to be channeled through our city, I think there should be some discussion about how we're going to pay for handling all that extra water that's coming through the municipality. So I think it's important to have that movement.
I can take a little bit of a stab at it with Rodney not with us today. The stormwater utility is a collection that gets paid for all municipal residents who contribute to our storm, whether it be residential or commercial. I believe that generates around $2 million towards our storm water system within our community. I don't think that reaches out to our regional partners, our regional neighbors at this time. But that money does get invested back in capital projects such as these. We have the east storm, the west storm drainage channel that flows from the west part of the city, actually connects into this system through Roger Greco Lake and up through the landfill area. So the money collected on a stormwater utility does go to pay for capital investments. We currently don't collect enough through that stormwater utility to pay for all our capital. So I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I just trying to, when I read it, I didn't have all the information that I might have had a year ago. That's all. But I just, when you have a regional utility on, somehow I feel that the users should pay for it. That's simple.
I think it's a very good point, Councilor Baker, and I think that challenges the administration as well as our council. And from my perspective as the mayor, to sit with our fellow neighboring municipalities and discuss that. I think that's something that certainly we need to address, because that in the ICF that we've heard about, we've got it through the government of Alberta, through the MGA, we'll be sitting there with the county of Vermilion River discussing numerous items that are jointly, they are fully aware, I believe, of the stormwater drains that is drained through the county and through the city, and we end up handling. So I'm looking forward to those discussions in the next year or two. We have till 2020, the county of Vermilion River has till 2020 to come up with a collaboration framework agreement with us. From our perspective, because of the charter, we kind of have that unique perspective that we don't always have to be up to those current laws in the province, because the charter governs directly. But certainly I will make note of that to ensure that we have that conversation when we have a chat with the county of Vermilion River on the other services that we're going to be discussing. Because it's certainly in their best interest. We need to speak with the county of Welton, because they're continuing to do some development to the south, and that water flows the south drainage ditch. So I think there's several different opportunities for us to access that in the future. The challenge is, as usual, it's what we deal with today. As you lightened us many times, but this is the item that's on today's agenda. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the engineer comes back with, because for once, I actually have a little bit of experience after trying to manage water for 5 years in central Alberta with a nonprofit organization. And certainly, I've got a few ideas, but I'm not an engineer, so I look forward to what the engineering comes back to deal with that grade, and how we break that force of water, because that's the problem. Force of water, when it's moving, is extensive. And what man builds, water usually washes away. Here's a perfect example of what we built. So hopefully, with a little different engineering concept used, we can break that force of that water, slow it down, and get away from the undercutting that's going on from that water that's happened to be moving at the pace it's moving, and deal with it as it moves forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the engineers come up with the first solution. Any other?
Sorry, is there any way to tell, you said 90% of our water drains into this channel. Is there any way to tell what percentage of the surrounding municipalities drain into that as well?
I think based on a study that was done in 2014 for the Neil Edmonds system. There was the engineering consultant at the time had done a calculation to show how much of the water from the city versus how much from the county was going in.
Do you know what those were? No?
I don't recall.
Okay, but we do have some figures somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll do some digging and get back to you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you.
Good luck with moving forward with this project. Moving through the agenda to item 5.7, Hyundai redistricting. The city manager.
I'll ask Wayne Shanks from our planning and development department to present.
Good afternoon, Wayne. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council Committee members. We have an application for redistricting from the Light Industrial District to the Highway Corridor Commercial District. Just giving you a little bit of background here. This is a city parcel that was sold to the Landsberg Automotive Group for a Hyundai dealership. I have that pronunciation right, Hyundai. Certainly is a new exciting development here. We have a development permit that has been issued as of last year, late last year. And also we have an application that was for this redistricting to allow the parcel to be rezoned, redistricted to allow development on the eastern half of the parcel. With this development, the development is on the western half of the parcel. It's roughly about 3.5 acres. The dealership does not need the rest of the parcel. They would like to have the option to possibly sell the parcel in the future. The remainder of the parcel, of course, would have to be through a subdivision process to be able to do that. And we feel that with this rezoning or redistricting, it would certainly allow for a wide array of highway commercial uses. The parcel does lend itself well to that designation, and I should say that the Hyundai dealership was approved as a permitted use within the Light Industrial District. And we would also consider a dealership, an automotive dealership, as a highway commercial use. This application had been submitted to the Planning and Development Department on December 15th, 2017 for the redistricting. We have had referral process. We've had no concerns except for one concern on that property. That concern has been addressed by Planning and Development. Now, typically, redistricting applications are submitted for a specific use. In this particular case, we don't have one specific use. However, the automotive dealership, as I said, is located there as a permitted use. With the highway commercial districting that is being proposed today, this would allow for other options for that piece of land. And they would be for highway commercial oriented businesses. Now, redistricting applications are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and this application has particular circumstances or characteristics that deem it suitable for redistricting change. And that would be the current use and the highway parcel exposure lends itself well to highway corridor commercial. And the adjacent parcel to the west is already zoned as C2 or highway commercial. That is the parcel that contains the Sawmill Restaurant. The lands to the south, I would like to note, are within the DC7 district. To everyone, it's probably pretty clear that that area is going to be the new casino development that's across the highway, Highway 16. So that will certainly bring some dynamics to the area in terms of developing this as a highway corridor commercial area. And as well, as I mentioned, the proposed zoning will allow for more flexibility in uses, which will only enhance existing and future development, both within and in proximity to highway corridor, in conformance with the intent of the highway corridor commercial overlay. And so what we're presenting here are some options for the council committee to consider. And of course, the main option would be that it be brought forward to a subsequent council meeting for first reading and a public hearing date to be set. And as well, there is an attached bylaw that forms part of this information report for council to consider. And that concludes my presentation, Your Worship and council committee members.
Thank you, Lee. Questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Great presentation. I just have a question as far as changing the zoning when we have no particular idea of like what the use would be. Could they not just sell that, like subdivide and sell that other piece of land, and then whoever is getting a development permit would go through the normal process of changing the zoning at that time? I don't understand why we would change the zoning for a piece of property that's intended to be sold as far as we know at this time. Like if they were to subdivide it and intend to someone else.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Torreson, certainly that is an option to be able to do that, to sell the parcel and then have the new owners to apply for a zoning change at that point when they decide what they want to zone it to. I guess the way that planning and development looks at it is that here we have a use, the automotive dealership that's already approved through permitted, as a permitted use through the existing zoning. And as I mentioned before, that type of use is also a highway commercial use. We have a number of highway commercial properties throughout the area. As I mentioned, you have the highway commercial that's just to the west of 39th Avenue or just across, just adjacent to the parcel. And with the casino that's developing across the road as well, we have, although that's direct control, we still have a highway commercial oriented use. And therefore, as I mentioned in the report, there are some certainly some circumstances that lend itself well to zoning this as highway commercial at this time. I guess one could look at it as well as what is the harm in redistricting this parcel to a use that certainly, as I mentioned, is already permitted use within the light industrial district.
Yeah, I don't disagree. One other question, you may not know the answer to this because it's a non-question, but is changing the zoning, does that change the value of a property?
With that is a little bit difficult to answer because we have certainly light industrial, as I mentioned, does allow for some commercial uses, which we have here. If you change the zoning to commercial, which is certainly a little bit different zone, whether that changes your taxation, I don't know the exact answer to that. I don't know if we have an expert in the room that could answer that question.
We do.
Thank you, Scott.
The answer is maybe. It potentially could, it depends on what the new potential uses are and what demand will be for that type of property.
So I guess my overall point would be is if this is changing the value of the property so that, let's say they can subdivide it and now sell it for more money than we sold it to them for, which is, you know what, their right to do it because they purchased a property from us. But at the same time, wouldn't it be equally as much logic to allow the subdividing that parcel, keeping the same districting, and then they could choose if they want to at that time to change it to a commercial or highway commercial? I don't know. It's just a simple question. I thought possibly it changes the value, which throws things off to me as far as whether or not we're giving them a little too much leeway. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councilor Torreson. I think what we have here is, if, by redistricting this parcel, we certainly have a wide array of commercial uses that we could open this parcel up to. With the light industrial, we are limited in those uses. As mentioned, it does allow for an automotive dealership. However, to be able to get other uses such as, let's say, a restaurant or something like that, or a number of commercial type uses, it makes sense to rezone or redistrict this property at this time. And again, I just want to reemphasize that given the location, specific location of this area, with excellent highway exposure on Highway 16, as well as the proximity to the casino and existing commercial development to the west. I felt that by redistricting this parcel, you are allowing a little bit more of options for the future owners. And I don't see really a problem in redistricting at this time.
Just a quick comment. When I look at the commercial development on Highway 16 to the west, and then I look at commercial development on Highway 16 to the east, obviously the commercial development in the east is much less than that of the west. So rezoning to a C2 just gives me the economic development for businesses to come in and start open new businesses, right? And I wouldn't even foresee in the future that we perhaps rezone different areas as well to make it C2. With the casino there and the sawmill, it just seems appropriate to me to make it C2, and also for the Hyundai dealership to make it easier to sell. If they are thinking of selling the other part of the lot, it would be easier to sell, I would think, as a C2 rather than the light industrial zoning. So for me, it just makes sense.
I was partially giving Wayne a hard time about this, but I pretty well concur that the DC2 does make sense for the property. It's just, I wasn't sure if that was throwing things off as far as values and whether or not we were giving someone too good of a deal, but it sounds like we're not, so.
Councillor Baker.
Well, thank you, Richard. Just to answer the council first, I hope the price goes up and the assessment goes up and Scott will be happy to collect more taxes. My only concern, this is a good development, but I have concern. Firstly, the owners probably don't want to subdivide it till they know how well the business is going to go on that lot, because they don't know how much to subdivide off. That might be a question. But more importantly, how are we going to access that property? We have a policy here. We've been trying to do access every so far apart, and the only access I see if they subdivide the east half would be right off Highway 16. That means another access into that property off the highway, and that's awful close to 39th Street. Like, unless it's right in and right out only, I don't know what you're planning for the long range, but if you subdivide that land, it's got to have access.
Through your worship to Councillor Baker, I can certainly say that we would not have access directly off of the highway. We would have access through either a panhandle, through the north end of where the Hyundai dealership is on the west half, or we would have an easement that would go through that property. We cannot have two accesses.
Okay. Thank you very much. Those are bad intersections, they get too close together.
Sorry, one more thing. I think in terms of, we don't even know if the property is going to be subdivided either. That's one option. By redistricting this property as well, certainly, again, the way I look at it is it more aptly zones that property the way it should be, across, like I said, across from already existing C2 and the casino development across the highway. So whether you subdivide it or not, I feel that this districting is appropriate for this parcel.
I figured you'd have it covered.
Any other questions? Wayne, if I can, as I look at this, we would have made a C2 when on the right-hand side, the sawmill was built, C2 now on the left-hand side. Is there benefits, and do they, I guess, first, the light industrial one or industrial one that's to the east, there's a repair shop, fuel dealership, service station right along there. Would that make sense to become commercial too as well? Like should we be looking at that? Because I even look to the east, and I believe that's the Redhead dealership on the corner, the large lot to the proposal. Is an equipment dealership meet commercial too? Like what categories do we have?
Right.
Is there value in looking at this after this is done at a bigger perspective? Because certainly they are highway adjacent.
Thank you, Your Worship. The existing development, it does lend itself more to the east, more to light industrial, the way one sees it today. Whether that area could redevelop in the future, there's always that possibility given the catalyst, I would say. Number one, the proposed commercial development, i.e. the casino or the existing development, the sawmill, and if this land does become rezoned here, whether that will provide a catalyst for further redistricting and further development. But the way that parcel is right now with the existing development, I would say more lends itself to light industrial.
On the east side.
On the east side.
But on the west side, that would have to be looked at down the road in due time, I'm sure, as well.
Correct.
All right, any other questions? I think you've got a general feeling from this committee as to where they are laying. No decisions made, but
I'm waiting
to give
for
some direction to
I'm waiting for more questions if we have them.
I think you've answered it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Back to the agenda, 5.8 was removed this time. I noted earlier, so we'll move on to 5.9, 2018 desktop computer hardware refresh. The city manager.
I'll ask Richard Bennett from IT to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, through Council. I would like to present this or represent this proposal. We brought this forward at last GPC for computer hardware refresh, our 2018 desktop refresh for this one. And our next proposal is for the network hardware. So with that, previously we submitted all the hardware refresh to be as one RFP. And we released that to the public and brought it to council. Based on the feedback that we received internally and from council, we re-released this to the public with a change of weighting on cost, changed our quantity so we weren't requesting for the exact same submissions. So we changed up and split out the two submissions to ask for pricing to come back and that we would go back with multiple vendors for our network and computer hardware. So with that, we did receive a change in price. Our costs did go down by going through this proposal. By re-releasing it, we had our costs go down. Genix Solutions that we suggest for this one went down about 4% for their computer order. They were not the winning proponent for the network hardware. But their costs did go down, and that is shown in this proposal. So with this proposal, we propose that this goes to council for a decision for next week's council meeting. Do you have any questions?
No, I'd like to say thank you very much to the team and administration for bringing this back. I think this is the waiting Certainly, we had some great questions, I thought, and we responded accordingly, so thank you very much for bringing that back and for the information you provided. I think it's very clear and concise and answers a lot of the questions that people had asked of us. Councilor Person?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a quick question. I know when we had this in front of us last time, one of the reasons, or one of the extra things that one of the vendors was doing that the other ones didn't was something along the lines of registering all the hardware for warranty, recall, all that stuff, like registering everything for us, and those extra things that some vendors do. Did we include that in the RFP this time as something that we required them to do?
No, Your Worship, through Councillor Thorson. We did not include that as part of our process. As Paul stated in that GPC, we can do that process internally. So as part of this process, we looked at having our hardware provided to us, and then we would go through that process with the vendor of choice when we have them selected.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? I think that you've given us the information that we can certainly expect to see at the next council meeting to move forward with.
Thank you.
So let's move on to 5.10, which is the network hardware. You're back up again, Richard.
So as I stated a couple of minutes ago, the network hardware has a 5 to 7 year lifespan, and with this proposal we are proposing a refresh of our equipment. We've gone through the RFP process and RFQ process now to refresh our equipment, and this is just for the equipment as tendered. This has nothing to do with licensing. As we implement our software or our hardware, we may have to go through a process of updating our internal licensing. At that point, we will be dealing with our direct reseller for that process to make sure that we get exactly what we need. We aren't upsold and we aren't undersold on licensing.
Any questions regarding the network hardware?
So our recommendation is to go to council again next week with, again, the cost from Insight. Again, the cost did go down about 5% for the hardware that was being provided. In total, we went down about $8,000 by how we split up the proposals and how we changed the proposals and go into an RFQ process. We did save the city about $8,000.
Excellent. That's appreciated. No questions? Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
Would you move a motion to adjourn for 10 minutes? Sure. All right, seconder. Councilor Monroe, all in favor? Carried. Councilor Torson, seconded by Councilor Monroe. Any discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Returning back to agenda item number 6 under the government's priorities matters. I'll look to 6.1, emergency management bylaw. City Manager.
I will ask once again for Ernie Paulson to present.
Welcome back, Ernie.
Your Worship, members of council, thank you. Thanks very much, and coming to be in front of you the second time today. This one we are looking for direction, and ultimately our objective is to have an emergency management bylaw prepared and brought forward to council. Just as a little background to it, as I got here, kind of the first steps of any new job is to figure out your governance, organization, and structure. The legislative chain is always an interesting one, particularly here. You find out that the MGA and the Cities Act is nothing, and then the Charter is this wholly new, interesting document we have to explore. So the Charter becomes really important because it provides direction to us as a city as to the application of certain pieces of legislation, and particularly the Emergency Management Act, where it stipulates that the Alberta Act is the rule or the piece of legislation that carries throughout the entire city. So all of our program, our organization, our structure, our bylaw, all of that needs to be anchored quite clearly to the Act. In our case, it doesn't. And this is a few mandatory things like appointment of a director of emergency management, some structural committees and things like that need to occur. The Act really, in terms of the Alberta Emergency Management Act, really deals with the delegation of authority from council through the city manager to the rest of the city administration in terms of meeting the obligations under the Act of the minister's delegation. It creates a sequence, and I think it's really important for council to always keep in mind you are in charge. You will always be in charge. The Act is absolutely clear. The authority having jurisdiction is defined as the elected council of the community. What this is really about is that the minister delegates responsibilities to you. You delegate them further into the organization. There's a director of emergency management that's appointed under the bylaw, and we're recommending that it be my position. That reports up through the city manager and council to council to make sure that you have a program, that the program is properly coordinated, that it has the tools and resources it requires, and is effectively discharging its duties and functions. There's an emergency management agency that is created within the bylaw as well. That agency really is the entirety of the management group of the city, as well as selected local stakeholders, school divisions, healthcare, and others. Certainly our utilities as well. In terms of council's interaction and ability to influence on a more regular basis of the activities of the agency and our program, there's an advisory committee, an emergency management advisory committee that's formed. Generally, it's at least one member, usually 2 or 3 members of council that sit periodically with key members of the emergency management agency and provide advice, guidance, and support and encouragement to the group to make sure that we're on track with council priorities. So that really, in a nutshell, is what we're proposing. In your package, there's a copy of the draft bylaw as well as some explanatory material that follows behind that.
Comments or questions?
Just what changes are there from the current bylaw that we have? Can you just point those out?
Okay, so the changes,
like what significant changes there were in this bylaw versus our previous?
It's, through your worship, the bylaw really is a complete rewrite of the existing bylaw. So it tracks through a number of things. So it starts off with, well, first it actually reflects and follows the mandatory provisions of the Act, which are essential in there. It includes a reference to the city manager role, which was missing, and I think is a really important step through our organizational process, and legitimately links it up to how we do business as a corporation. It appoints the manager of emergency management operations as my role, my position as the director of emergency management for the city.
Oh, we didn't have that in the previous
We
bylaw?
did not.
Okay.
It establishes the required committees and really the two important. It establishes the advisory emergency management advisory committee, which is a defined committee in the Act, which is that committee of council that provides guidance and counsel. And we're reestablishing, just kind of reformatting a bit in relation to the Act. The Emergency Management Agency, which is that broad group of administrative staff,
Right.
ELT and about 20 managers that do that. We've removed a few things from the bylaw. We're proposing to remove anything that looks like position descriptions. Bylaws are a terrible place usually for position description and the better ways of doing that.
Okay.
And then finally, that was the key.
Perfect. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to be clear, because I don't know the answer at all, as far as the Saskatchewan side. Is there an overriding superseding law that supersedes our charter, or would this bylaw supersede whatever that exists in Saskatchewan?
So, Your Worship, the charter actually is a provision of both the Alberta and Saskatchewan governments, where there was an agreement on which certain key pieces of legislation would apply. And in this case, the rules of the road in terms of our organization and structure of our emergency management program is that Alberta Act.
Okay, so my only, comment was, so if this also covers Saskatchewan side disaster emergency type of thing, we have ATCO Gas, ATCO Electric, and a bunch of other ones, SaskTel. But the only ones I noticed that were missing were Sask Power and Sask Energy, as far as listing all of them. They were just two that I noticed that weren't on the list.
We'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll add to that list if I may. I noticed Lakeland College was not included in that. As potentially, we have the school divisions as well as.
They are.
Oh, I missed it? Okay, right, thank you, there it is. I just wasn't, the other one might be the updating the Prairie North changing to Saskatchewan Health. Keeping it as current as we can.
Yes.
Sure. Councilor Bacon.
Your Worship, nothing with the document directly, but I hadn't remembered we were just under Alberta. But what happens if we form a joint agreement for emergency services or disaster service call to Lake, and we have to go 100 miles into Saskatchewan? Does that matter?
Through Your Worship, no, it doesn't. Really, that's part of that mutual aid, is understanding what the mechanisms to move back and forth. And as long as it's my understanding is, as long as it is a jurisdiction to jurisdiction sharing of services, and council is authorized us to be in that agreement, we're good.
There's no way back then. Okay.
I think that, any other questions? I think you appreciate bringing it up to a current stage, and I see certainly changed with the organizational change within the city itself, administration. I think everyone's been identified by the proper titles that would fall into that, and it's basically the senior leadership team of the city and associated managers directly reporting to those that make that happen. I think that it's important to keep those bylaws as current as we can. Appreciate that. The effort, I think it would be a good start. forward to seeing it come to City Council.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 6.2, planning and development fees bylaw. The city manager.
I'll ask Amy Fee from Planning and Development to present.
Good afternoon, Amy.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I'm here today to discuss with you guys the current planning and development fee bylaw. Currently, planning and development has 3 bylaws with various fees for different types of development. So we have a building bylaw, a plumbing and drainage bylaw, and a development permit fee schedule. And all of these 3 bylaws each contain their own fee schedule. What we would like to do is we would like to combine these 3 fee schedules into one. Most municipalities review and update their fee schedules every couple of years, and for the city it's been 5 to 10 years since most amendments were adopted. Building fees were last amended in 2012, where they increased from $5 per $1,000 of construction to $5.50 per $1,000 of construction value, with a minimum fee of $50. Plumbing fees were last amended in 2008. They became more consistent and increased from $35 base fee and $9 per fixture to a $50 base fee and $8 per fixture, decreasing to $7.50 per fixture if there were more than 20 fixtures being installed. Development permit fees were just amended in 2016 as a standalone bylaw. These fees were established when the new land use bylaw 5-2016 was adopted to include fees for new forms of development that were not in the old bylaw. For example, garage suites, work done without a permit, site re-inspections, and so on. As we became accustomed to the new land use bylaw, it was noted there were additional fees that could be added to ensure that when we're asked to provide services, it is not at an expense to the city. Attached are examples of what other municipalities are charging, along with examples of what building permits will cost upon a new application to provide an idea of what additional revenue we could receive. So the objective is to create an all-inclusive document where planning and development fees can easily be accessed by staff and customers. So our options are that the committee direct planning and development department to bring the draft planning and development fees bylaw forward to council for a decision. This will ensure that our bylaw continues to reflect best practices, is in line with the fees of comparable municipalities, and will allow the city to come closer to cost recovery for various planning and development services. 2, that the committee direct planning and development department to make changes to the draft planning and development fees bylaw and bring it back to the next GPC meeting. Or 3, that council direct planning and development department to make changes to the draft planning and development fees bylaw and bring it forward to council for a decision. Governance implications. A new planning and development fee bylaw will accompany the RFD. There will also be a request to appeal bylaw 18-2012, the building permit fees, bylaw 4-2008, plumbing permit fees in the plumbing and drainage bylaw, and bylaw 28-2016, the current planning and development fee schedule. It'll also be a request to amend bylaw 8-2002 and bylaw 59-2011. This will be done simultaneously through bylaw 18-2017. The amendments as follows. Bylaw 8-2002, delete Appendix A, the fees in the plumbing and drainage bylaw, and replace them with Schedule A in bylaw 18-2017. And bylaw 59-2011, delete Schedule B, fees in the building bylaw, and replace them with Schedule A in bylaw 18-2017. The budget and financial implications is to assist in cost recovery for services provided where said services are a financial charge to the city.
Thank you, Amy. Well put. There's a lot of numbers there. Very well. So, nothing, but it's hard enough when we do one bylaw and affect 3 others and a couple others. So thank you very much. Council, any questions for Amy? Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, we're using 2018 numbers. That's probably one of the worst years we could use in the last 50 years, is the numbers, current numbers, because very little has happened in our city. I'd like to see some numbers from 06 and 010 and 08, how we came through, because you have ups and downs. And I'd like to see a spreadsheet with those numbers on it before we ever get to it. You could pick the worst year and you could come up with a $750,000 deficit. And that isn't good enough for me. Another thing I worry about is the ever increasing cost. And I don't know where they all are. But we talk about affordable housing. And all it does is just keep adding and adding and adding. And I think that we need more spreadsheets showing where we were, where we're going, and why we need it. When we choose the towns and villages, why don't we take the small cities in Saskatchewan, mid-sized cities, and the ones in Alberta, rather than just choose one over the other? I don't know why we do that, but I've talked about this before, and I believe we need a better cross-section of what's really going on out there. But more importantly, what is it really costing us to do the job? I look at an ad for $800 if you want to rezone some property. Half-page ad. Do we need a half-page ad for $800? Or can we use a $200? I mean, just asking the question. And I don't want answers today. I'm just saying, I've seen those big half-page ads, and I'm not sure why they're in there at that kind of money. I mean, if people are interested, they'll look at it. So I find there's 30-some pages worth of stuff here, and to try and compare to where we were 10 years ago or 5 years ago, do we have some spreadsheets out there that we could follow through and just see where we're going?
In the PowerPoint presentation that would have been attached in your package, were you guys able to review that? As you can see, our costs have not really increased in years. We're not asking for a big cost. We're just trying to level the playing field, especially in the building permit side of things, for everybody that's applying. We're keeping the building permits themselves at $5.50 per $1,000 of construction value. We're just looking to have a formula so that when somebody comes in and they're building the same type of project, it's going to cost them the same amount. Whereas right now, they're giving us the construction value, and we're just going off of that. So one person building a house is coming in and saying it's $180,000 to build this house. The next person is coming in and building virtually the same house, they're saying it's $350,000 to build that house. And we just want to make sure that when we are charging our residents or our contractors permit fees, that they're all paying the same amount, or one's not paying.
I understand the fair market value I understand that part.
And as for the half-page permit, or the half-page advertisements, I believe that's part of the MGA requirement to have a half-page advertisement, so that's.
We have to make it.
If I'm not mistaken, I can look into that, but I believe it is the half-page ad that's required.
Certainly, I think that I appreciate where you're at, Councilor Baker. We've done a good comparison on the Alberta, because some of the communities that chosen are very similar, and it wouldn't hurt to have that same from the Saskatchewan side, if that's possible for planning and development, to give us that comparison, PA, Moose Jaw, and I'm not trying to think what next city would be the next, from that perspective, but in that comparison, because there's no use comparing Saskatoon and Regina, but certainly PA and Moose Jaw would give us some comparables on the Saskatchewan side that would be comparable to the Saskatchewan portion of the city. Councilor Torsten.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just curious as far as the budget for 2018. So we used these updated figures in the 2018 budget, or we did not? As far as the permit revenue that was going to be
Through Your Worship, to Councilor Dorson, no, we did not use the updated or the proposed figures.
Okay, thank you. I realize this is just for discussion, but I struggle with this one a little bit just based on the current construction industry in Lloydminster, that if we didn't budget for this year, so we've budgeted with the assumption we're not getting this additional revenue and we were going to make it fly, I think it may be a potential terrible idea to implement higher costs for construction companies in Lloydminster this year, because there's so many available commercial, industrial, residential properties that, it might look even worse if we implement higher fees and costs. That's just my thoughts on that.
Your Worship, if you don't mind. The reason it wasn't in the budget this year is because we didn't know council's direction, so we didn't feel it was advantageous to budget for something that council may not approve. So we budgeted based on what our current bylaw was, and that's typical in these types of situations.
That's fair.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Any other questions? Well, I think that the general feeling, and this is one of those tough things in committee, is I think that we will ask it to go back to planning for a little more detail. That's the general feeling I've got. And maybe the timing, I hear what council's saying, that certainly from the perspective that rather than trying to lessen development at this time, especially as we hopefully see the recovery continuing, if we're prepared to go into 2019, and maybe towards the end of 2018, so people can be prepared for the new budget year, both from the city and giving people fair warning that this is coming. From that perspective, is that the sense I'm getting from council? From that perspective, so I'm going to give that back to administration. Appreciate the work. I think it's work well done. There's a little bit more information we'd like to see, and I think timing, this comes back in September, October, I would think it might be a good time to take a look at this. Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, some months ago I had asked about electrical permits and what we're charging for electrical permits in the city, and I've really never heard any real feedback on that issue. And I'm not going to get into it today because we're here to listen, but I'd like to see the electrical permits addressed. And there has been some talk about how we might handle the planning department inspections in the future. I don't know where we're going with that either.
I can address that one, Your Worship, through Councilor Baker. The way electrical permits right now, the city does not have any involvement with them whatsoever. And as far as I can see, we never have. We've never issued them. We've never done inspections. The electrical permits are issued on the Alberta side through Superior Safety Codes, and through the Saskatchewan side through Sask Power or Sask Energy. They're the ones that set the fees. It is something that the city could look at in the future, but with the manpower, we'll need the manpower to actually set the fees, to do the inspections, to issue the permits. So it is something that we are looking at, but it's not something that we're addressing right at this moment.
Well, I'm asking you to address this.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking you to address it. I did 6 months ago.
Yeah,
and I think it should be addressed.
I believe there were emails exchanged with Rick McDonald while he was here. I do have the email saying why our permits are what they are and why they're set the way. Wayne, did you want to address this one?
Yeah, Your Worship, I think this is something we can do offline. We can provide you some feedback. And if there's further clarification that Councilor Baker's looking for, we can definitely get that for him.
Yeah, because I think it is an issue from that perspective of planning and development. From this perspective, we'll come back to it as a separate time, if that's all right, Councilor Baker, to answer that and go from there. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Executive Manager.
Thank you.
That input. Any other comments or questions for Amy? Thank you very much. Well presented. We're at 1:30, but I believe our three public presentation presenters are here, or here. So I will return back to the agenda, item number 4. And the first item up for presentation is the Local Immigration Partnerships presentation. I would ask the invite the presenters to come forward. Mike?
Your Worship, okay? Your Worship?
Certainly.
Can we do that? I'm just questioning it only because if anybody was coming in for the public presentations that we always have set for 2 p.m., I'm all for going forward, but are we actually allowed to do that if somebody's not here that maybe was expecting to be here for 2 o'clock to hear one of these presentations?
I'm going to converse with the acting city clerk. Okay. So, in the case that they were public presentations and they weren't speaking to, we didn't have a natural bylaw hearing or something like that at 2 o'clock. It wasn't advertised that they were speaking at 2, so it was during this committee meeting. So there's no requirement by statute that we're aware of that says we have to hold it at 2 o'clock. In some cases where we do publicly advertise, especially a bylaw hearing, then that would be different. But because of the committee structure and being a committee meeting, we didn't allocate a specific time. We did ask them to be here for 2 o'clock when we contacted them about the agenda, but they're here before 2, so there's not something that's actually holding us to that because they simply are presentations being presented for information.
Okay, no, just wanted to make sure we had our ducks in a row here.
Thanks, Councillor. I think that we try to follow the procedure as best as we can. So if it was, from my understanding, a bylaw hearing, it would be a hearing to the 2 o'clock hour or as close to it after. But in this case, because it's just simply presentations to this committee, from that perspective, we're free to use our rule as sitting in these chairs at this point. So, welcome.
Your Worship, Council members, thank you for giving me the privilege to come and present the Local Immigration Partnership. My name is Kimo Mansuri. I'm the Local Immigration Partnership Coordinator employed by Catholic Social Services. Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership, building a welcoming community and inclusive community for immigrants and refugees in Lloydminster. This is what we're trying to achieve with the Local Immigration Partnership. It takes courage for people, immigrants like us, to move to a new country like Canada and Lloydminster eventually to make a new home. And it is welcoming when we come to a city like Lloydminster and they welcome us with open hearts. And to have a vibrant, progressive communities throughout the country, they are coming together to bring immigrants and support immigrants to integrate better into their communities. What is welcoming community? Based on the principles of acceptance and respect, a welcoming community should openly receive newcomers and create an inclusive environment. They should strive to understand the needs of newcomers and provide access to a full range of services and programs, and they should ensure newcomers are able to participate fully in all aspects of community life and the Canadian society. So the background. With support from Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, municipalities across Canada are playing a greater role in guiding immigration and settlement strategies. The Canadian model rests on the concept of settlement and integration as a two-way process, wherein promoting what newcomers bring to Canada, but also what Canada needs to offer to these newcomers. Communities across the country are increasingly recognizing the value and benefits of having newcomers and the importance of making plans for their arrival and integration into the community. What are the role of local immigration partnerships? Local immigration partnerships are mechanisms through which Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada supports the development of community-based partnerships and plans. The means to engage stakeholders in a locally driven strategic plan, an avenue to help better integrate immigrants' needs in municipal planning. The Local Immigration Partnership, which is LEAP, bring together agencies, service providers, community groups to collaborate and strengthen their community's ability to successfully welcome new immigrants in their communities. The Lloydminster Local Immigration Partnership is also considered as the LEAP. LEAP creates systemic change in local communities by increasing the capacity and coordination of all stakeholders involved. However, local immigration partnerships do not deliver direct services to newcomers, but they facilitate the development and implementation of sustainable solutions to create welcoming societies and improve settlement and integration to newcomers. Local immigration partnerships across the country. In British Columbia, there are 20 local immigration partnerships. One of them is French. And in Alberta, we have 10. One is in French. Saskatchewan, they have 3 local immigration partnerships. Manitoba has 4. Ontario, where it started, and they have about 38 local immigration partnerships. New Brunswick has 3, Nova Scotia 2, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland has 2, as well as the Northwest Territories. In Alberta, we have the local immigration partnership in Jasper, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary, Bow Valley, Brooks, Lethbridge, and in Lloydminster. In some cities, it is the city who actually hosts the local immigration partnership, like in Edmonton, for example. It's the city who hosts the local immigration partnership with the federal government. In Saskatchewan, we have in Regina and Saskatoon, and in Manitoba, Winnipeg, Winnipeg, and Portland. So my purpose here this afternoon is to introduce the local immigration partnership to council, and I've been doing that with other agencies in Lloydminster. The Catholic Church Services is the fiscal agent for the local immigration partnership, as I said before. In other municipalities like in Edmonton and Bow Valley, it's the city who actually fiscal agents, and they actually do the implementation as well. They are funded through IRCC for 3 years, from April 2017 to March 2020, but that can be actually extended based on what the needs and how we are doing the local immigration partnership in Lloydminster. So it will be including research to assess the needs of the immigrants in Lloydminster, and community solutions and engagement, consultations and engagement, establishing governance structure and capacity, and developing strategic priorities and action plan in addressing some of the needs and challenges that immigrants are facing in Lloydminster. It's a multi-level collaboration. In most municipalities, the local immigration partnership helps the provincial, municipal, and federal government come together and address some of the needs and challenges that immigrants are facing. And it encourages cooperation among federal, provincial, and municipal governments, as well as non-governmental, non-profit industries, businesses, and land institutions as well. So the benefits to Lloydminster and its residents. The local immigration partnership project brings approximately about $300,000 in the next 3 years, and this is subject to renewal with IRCC, and that funding can increase based on the needs that the immigrants are having and the gaps that we identified during the research of the needs assessment. This alone will eventually make an impact on new immigrants who want to make Lloydminster home. And when we want to see, if we want to see our city grow, more houses, we create an environment wherein newcomers who have already been here are able to bring other people talking to their friends to come here, and that will create more houses being built, more opportunities being opened, which will increase some of our tax revenue here as well. So, creating a municipal policy for immigration and settlement. In most municipalities, like in Edmonton, they have a settlement and immigration policy, which helps to integrate immigrants better. And I've been going through in Lloydminster, there's no policy yet on immigration and settlement. And when we have immigration and settlement policy, it will encourage provincial government as well as federal government to actually invest whilst we identify those needs and disasters. The city and immigration and settlement agency will be able to access provincial federal funding and resources to help immigrants and newcomers. It will attract more people to come and make Lloydminster home because of the services and that we provide here in Lloydminster once we are able to coordinate all those services. Diversity brings social and economic prosperity to a community like Lloydminster if all residents are able to connect, contribute, and know they belong. Once people know they belong, then they are able to prosper. So these are the 17 characteristics of a welcoming community. It creates employment opportunities, fostering a social capital, affordable and suitable housing. I may not go through all the list. You have it in your presentation already. You go to the next slide. How do we become more welcoming? So when we take those 17 characteristics and put them in the middle, we do community assessment, which probably will be doing. I know they've done some research or survey recently in Lloydminster, but it is not specifically targeting immigrants. So what this project will be doing is actually conduct a needs assessment and then set goals, and then do some implementation, evaluate those needs and gaps that have been identified, and what has been implemented to close those gaps, and then we go do the cycle all over again. So the key steps, we will be establishing a partnership council, immigrant advisory table, and working groups. The immigrant partnership council will include all those agencies, probably city councilors, one or two city staff to be in that partnership council to actually get a plan, strategic plan. Immigrant advisory table would purposely be for immigrants who will be advising those partnership council. So LEAP Council proposed activities in January 2018 to March. We'll be meeting and doing some introduction on what I'm doing here today, gathering information, creating the terms of reference, and during April 2018 to September, we'll be doing the needs assessment of immigrants and how many immigrants are here, and what are the needs, what are the gaps, or what are the challenges, and then once we identify that, then we try to develop a strategic plan. So LEAP's outcomes. So there are two sets of outcomes for the LEAPs. We have a short term, which is 1 to 3 years, and then we have the long term. Those are also included in the presentation that was sent earlier to you. So the governance structure, we have IRCC, which is our sole funder for the project, and then we have Catholic Social Services, which is the fiscal agent, and the LEAP coordinator, which is myself, and then we'll be having an advisory council, and then immigrant advisory council, and then working groups will be, once we do the needs assessment, and then these working groups will be working into those areas that we've identified as these are some of the challenges and needs in the community. So the LEAP Advisory Council, the recommended size for that is 10 to 15, and this council will be made up of individuals from a variety of backgrounds that are willing to play a leadership role in promoting and implementing the vision of the LEAP. 2 co-chairs will be selected, and the LEAP terms of reference will be provided, who will provide further information on that. The purpose of the Advisory Council is to develop a settlement strategy and an action plan that aligns with the goals outlined in the mandate of the LEAP Local Immigration Partnership, and maybe if the city has a policy on settlement and immigration, that should also be tied to that purpose or goals of that particular policy. The LEAP Council will work collaboratively with each working group to develop a strategy in order to build and sustain the city environment that attracts and retains immigrants, refugees, and their families in Lloyd Minster. And the key areas will be economic integration, intergovernmental relations, service access and equity, planning and coordination, communication, public awareness and education, community and building, and inclusion. So as I said, the Immigrant Advisory Table is an important part because the voices of the immigrants will tell us what the needs are, what the gaps are, and how they're struggling to integrate. And once they give those information, then that will direct on how the advisory and the working group will be doing things for the council. Why do we have Immigrant Advisory Table? And I think I just explained that. It is a two-way process that encourages adjustment on the part of both the newcomers and the host society. Sometimes immigrants not knowing what their role is, they just think that the city they come to, the government will provide everything for them. But informing them that they have a part to play for them to integrate is crucial, so that's why we have the advisory table. And ultimately this goal is to support newcomers to become fully engaged in the economic, social, political, and cultural life of our city and the country as a whole.
We did allow 10 minutes. I have been a little bit gracious on the time. We're over that by a little bit, but can I bring you to a submission to close and then take a few questions from council? That would be, if you would, good.
Thanks for the question.
Would there be any questions from council regarding this presentation? Start with Councilor Monroe.
I was just wondering if you could give an example of a policy that's been used by other communities.
An example of a policy that is being used.
Right, so you were hoping that we can implement a policy that was for immigration and settlement. So can you give me an example of another municipality?
For example, in Edmonton, they have a policy on health, how immigrants access healthcare. And sometimes it becomes a huge burden on the city if immigrants don't understand how to access healthcare and how healthcare is. So they have a policy that enable immigrants to have those information and then have the training and the necessary tools for them to actually access those healthcare, and that's brings down.
So just a policy in place basically that says all the tools and I guess references that the immigrant needs in order to fulfill.
What I'll do is I'll definitely get all the policies that are from other jurisdictions that have got settlement and integration policy,
Right.
and I will submit that to the city clerk for
Right.
that information.
Just because the presentation is very good and I completely understand why it's great to enhance and to be able to support our immigrants, but I just not exactly clear on what you're asking for us to do in terms of policy. So if you could provide that, get it back to our city administration and forward it to us, that would be great.
I'll definitely do that.
Thanks.
Councilor Corson.
Councilor Monroe more or less asked my question about immigration and settlement policy and what it normally entails, and he kind of gave an example of one of the things, and I think I have a rough idea of what it would look like from that, and then getting an example would be good, but that's all I had, so thank you.
Any other questions? Council? Thank you very much, Kimo, for the presentation. It's very thorough. I think that we all, I hope many members of this council and the community, we've all experienced immigrants ourselves from our ancestry, but also in the last, living in the city of Lloydminster, where we know people that have come from various countries, and there is no challenge. The question, it is a challenge coming from a country where you may not have seen snow as an example, or the language barrier. There's so many different challenges. So I think you've got a great presentation, and we'll look forward to hearing back what the city could consider doing that will have to be reviewed by the city to help move things forward from that perspective. We appreciate the work you do in our city and the committee and the group. It's very important. We are welcoming to immigrants, and we certainly understand that it's not an easy step. And whatever we can do to try and help life better, make life better for them and for our city, I think that's what we want to do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kimo.
Moving on to the agenda item of the presentations, 4.2, the Lloydminster Youth Council. And we have some representatives from the Lloydminster Youth Council that we'd like to welcome. They're just going to need a minute to get their presentation together, I believe. Wendy will be able to help you with that.
I like presents.
Don't go digging into the thing yet. This is something we have to wait for some correction from our presenters.
What's the approximate value waiting to jump in?
always a pleasure to have welcome you folks from the Youth Council here in the Chamber. I'm always glad to have you, so thank you so much. Thank you very much. You're very welcome. I'll turn it over to you.
Your Worship and Councilors, hello. My name is Dustin Snyder, and this is Brianna McCaffrey. We are both students at Lloydminster Comprehensive High School. I am currently serving my third term on the Lloydminster Youth Council. Brianna is serving her first, and we are both fresh faces to the newly formed Health and Wellness Committee. First and foremost, we would like to sincerely thank you guys for giving us this opportunity to present to you today. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your value and use opinions in our city.
Welcome to Lloydminster, a community of extraordinary people and a city we would like to see reflect these people. Recently, as talks of cannabis legalization have kicked off, we've noticed themed stores beginning to open their doors. Out of curiosity, in the lead up to this presentation, I, with my parents' permission, visited one of these stores. I expected the store to only sell paraphernalia and the like. However, much to my surprise, this store also sold marijuana seeds and everything you would require to grow marijuana. Now, if you would kindly take a look inside your bags.
We're all going to jail, Council.
One of you will see inside your bags a packet of seeds. So you can just take it out and show it off. This is my temporary gift to you. This packet, sitting in front of you, contains 5 cannabis seeds I bought totaling $50. To put this in perspective, this one pack can produce enough marijuana to supply an entire school. Something that left my parents and my son was that upon informing the employee in the store that I wished to purchase these seeds, I was not asked for any form of identification or what my age was. Now, this entire process took me 7 minutes within going in the store, purchasing, and leaving. The seeds that I purchased are of a strain named Durban Poison and are known for their high THC levels and their psychedelic effect. As at 17 years old, I can buy everything I need to grow these plants, but I cannot purchase the papers to smoke the marijuana, though if I was so inclined, I could hop on Amazon.ca and purchase 1,200 papers for $30. Also, I can purchase various other paraphernalia that can be used to smoke marijuana. What I personally found shocking was that there is no law prohibiting the sale of seeds to minors. At the end of this presentation, I will be collecting the seeds back so we can use them again. Sounds good.
Awesome. So now back to my younger years. From kindergarten to grade 6, I attended Jack Kemp Community School. And in the spring months, the grade 6ers are given the privilege to leave the school grounds and walk to wherever they'd like to. Back when I was in grade 6, we would normally walk to either the 7-Eleven or Family Pizza, which was right across the highway. Unfortunately now, there are 2 cannabis product outlets within that same 8 to 10 minute walk proximity that I used to walk to at lunch. So this means that in the spring months, when the grade 6ers are allowed to leave the school, they will have all means to walk to these stores. And based on Rihanna's story, since there was no age restrictions on entering the store, and even worse, buying products from the store. This is something that's very unnerving to us, that the youth in our city are not yet fully being protected by this cannabis market, but as youth, we often believe ourselves to be indestructible, and we find ourselves believing these so-called facts with little or no evidence to their truth. In a recent discussion with one of our peers, we found out that cannabis actually cures cancer. That's amazing, right? Wrong. After some fact-checking, we learned that there is no evidence to prove this statement, and that our peer was fully misinformed. In order to educate the youth in our city, we will be holding a Cannabis Let's Talk conversation to understand and engage broader perspectives on cannabis and to help inform us on what information and education is needed to myth bust and provide facts to our community. We intend to connect with up to 500 youth with a Kahoot survey, up to 40 youth with a face-to-face engagement, and we will be inviting City Council to join us with the conversation.
Lloydminster, as a border city, finds itself in a very unique position in which it is divided and ruled by two provinces with very different views on the accessibility of certain substances. For example, flavored tobacco is prohibited in Alberta while still being readily available in Saskatchewan. As youth, we encourage you to, where possible, treat cannabis regulations consistently across the border markers. In Alberta, current discussions would have us being the most liberal province in the world. This appears to us as a step backwards rather than forwards after our unprecedented victory regarding flavored tobacco. One of the reasons Youth Council was invited to speak today was so that our council could hear the youth's recommendations for marijuana bylaws. After many discussions with youths of all opinions, we were able to formulate a list in which we hope the council will use when considering the future of Lloydminster.
One of our first recommendations, in an effort to see minimal impact of legalized cannabis on our city, we would like to see cannabis dispensaries located as far away as possible from residential and youth-oriented areas in our city, which include places like the mall, Glen Miller Park, and of course, schools. The place where we personally deem most fit which is far away from residential and youth popular areas, is in the industrial park located on the north end of Lloydminster. We have one cannabis shop already, possibly 2 or 3, as we did not really want to go into all of them to check out what they're all about. But even just this one shop, the situation is already outrageously out of control. Please consider the proximity that the shops would be to tobacco and alcohol sales, as well as schools, parks, and playgrounds. How many stores does Lloydminster need? We currently have 23 liquor outlets. Please consider carefully the number of locations of cannabis retail that we'll have in our city.
We would request an update to the current tobacco bylaw to also regulate and include tobacco-like products such as e-cigarettes and cannabis. Including cannabis, vapes, hookah, etc. will make it easier for council and administration to manage one bylaw for the community and for the community to understand. Currently in Lloydminster, you can smoke and vape in playgrounds. We would encourage council to take this opportunity to make our parks and playgrounds tobacco, vape, and cannabis free. Also, we ask council to include in the bylaw a way to prevent cannabis, hookah, and vaping loudness from opening. This seems like a crazy idea to request, but please do not allow for the opening of craft cannabis or cannabis boutique hotels.
Growing marijuana is not something that we can put a stop to, but regulating the growing procedures to keep our youth safe is something we can do. Keeping growing marijuana plants away from the site of sidewalks and keeping them completely contained is something to keep our youth safe. For example, Laura Lee here. Her house is backed onto a lake, which has a surrounding walking path. On her back fence, which is right on the walking path, she grows sweet peas. So in essence, anybody walking that path can pick a couple peas and use them as a snack on the rest of their walk. As we do know youth use these paths as well as other paths around the city, we would not like to see cannabis as easily accessible as Laura Lee's sweet peas.
In regards to growing marijuana, the Youth of Lloydminster would like to see some form of registration so that interested growers can be held accountable to the RCMP. In the registration, the intended grower must indicate where he or she plans to grow and store their plants and exactly how many they will have. Australia currently has a system in place in which to grow marijuana, one must go through a lengthy process in which intended growers must attend a police check and be able to prove that they will not be selling this on the black market.
The provincial legislation restricts the use of cannabis in vehicles and playgrounds. We would like to protect our community by prohibiting the usage of cannabis in public spaces, including parks, all outdoor events, things like the fair, the chuck wagons, and we would ask you to highly consider the current laws and regulations around the alcohol in public spaces in our city. As I'm sure council is aware, there will be many businesses interested in becoming cannabis dispensaries. As Lloydminster has been the first in the whole world to reinvest the fees from tobacco licensing back into the community, we would urge council to consider a licensing fee for alcohol and cannabis. This money would then be funneled back into the community in the form of education and prevention programs.
So this is some food for thought. One of the things Lloydminster Youth is adamant in preventing is the marijuana drive-thru. As seen in the picture on your screens, this drive-thru in Washington allows one to get their pod without ever having to leave the comfort of their vehicle. Our youth believe that this convenient way of obtaining marijuana would increase the likelihood of someone choosing to drive impaired. I also believe that a marijuana drive-thru will increase the risk of sales to minors. Once again, the Lloydminster Youth Council would like to thank the City Councillor for valuing our opinions and asking him to share our thoughts with you today. We would also like to send our appreciation to you for granting the moratorium and taking the time to consider what the future of cannabis will look like in Lloydminster. As a community, we urge Council to think about our youth when making any decisions regarding cannabis in Lloydminster. We want a community in which our children and our youth can grow up great. After all, in 20 to 30 years, the youth will be the ones sitting in these chairs. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And thank you for being on time. So, look at council, any questions that you have for these young folks?
Don't really have a question, but just definitely some food for thought in the whole presentation. Obviously, you guys aren't saying no completely to the marijuana, but just how it can protect our youth within our community. And I think that's the strong point to bring forward, is that you're not saying that no, it's not okay, but you're saying let's make it less accessible to our youth. And I think that's the main point that I'm taking from the presentation, and you guys did a wonderful job. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would agree with nearly everything in the presentation. The only thing that I would say in my own personal opinion from where we are right now is as far as licensing fees and what to do with that money. There's going to be some issues as far as things we need to pay for the RCMP for their testing and everything, and some additional policing that's likely going to come from this. That I'd like to see the money go towards that, but at the same time, that's still helping to accomplish a similar goal, rather than directing it strictly at prevention, but also with dealing with the crime side of things that may come along with it.
Thank you.
We certainly identified the areas of concern. This council has been looking at this for some time with the administration. We had the opportunity to host a conference here last September, the Mid-Sized Mayors of Alberta spoke to Colorado mayors. Excuse me, that gave us some insight to some of the issues you've identified. We've been waiting patiently for our federal and provincial governments to finalize all the details for the new laws that are coming, and in turn will have an effect on our bylaws that will be reviewed. And we've raised a lot of excellent points that I believe the administration has been working quite diligently already on, but you've certainly given us some more food for thought that administration and council will be looking at. I would certainly be honored and privileged to speak to the entire Youth Council to answer some of the items that you've raised that I could share rather than giving it to you and carrying it back and lengthening your presentation. I'd certainly be open to that, so let's see if we can find a time when the council's meeting and my calendar permits, and I'd be very much honored to come and give a presentation from our perspective of what we know at that particular point, because we know something today, but we don't have the full picture yet. That won't happen until we believe in early March when the government of Saskatchewan comes forward with their complete regulations and information, because that's the challenge, and you've identified it. The border city does create some unique opportunities and challenges for us, so we will try to address those. But thank you so much. Unless anyone else has any more questions?
Just one more comment. It's just, you guys really do make me proud on how innovative you are. Just to go through the process of going into one of the stores, finding out that you can buy the seeds, bringing in the receipt. I mean, it just shows how, I'm very proud of you guys. You do great. Thank you.
And I think this is very much
I don't know where the seeds went. Pass them around.
They went to my right.
Don't know where they ended up.
So thank you very much for your presentation, and you should be able to collect your seeds from Councilor Buckingham. The one who's got the smile on his face right now.
Yeah, $12 discount. This is too nice chocolate.
You're so smart.
Moving on to public presentations 4.3. I believe Ian, welcome you to the mic.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and council members. I didn't bring gifts or anything.
It's all right. I totally understand.
You'll
Just a
know for
little bit
next
about
time.
myself. My name's Ian McCoy. I own 20 after 4. Just for the record, seeds are illegal to sell, and they're not coming out of my store. My wife, Donalda, and I have owned retail business in Lloyd for 17 years. Both born and raised here, have contributed to the community by employing upwards to 8 employees at any time. We have donated local charities, supported local athletes. I was the head of the skate park committee that took 7 years to complete. We are very interested in recreational marijuana store. I previously sent you some information that's up on the monitor, and a bunch more information did come out Friday again that I really haven't had time to go through because there's a lot of it. The retail stores in Alberta, Okay, so anyways, you can find the newest information on there. It is alberta.ca/cannabis. We are carefully watching and following the government websites daily to keep up with the latest developments. As you may know, the Saskatchewan government has approved 2 licenses to be issued on the Saskatchewan side of Lloydminster. The Alberta government has announced that 250 stores will be allowed to open in the province of Alberta in the first year. We are qualified and confident in opening a retail store in Lloydminster. We look forward to working with the city for the safe and responsible distribution of recreational marijuana. My question to council is, will the city limit the number of retail locations on the Alberta side? And when should we expect to hear about licensing for the city of Lloyd? We need a business license to be able to apply to the AGLC for the license to distribute in Lloydminster.
So, I'm not used to, I guess, questions coming this way, but I believe I understand exactly where you're at. Thank you, Ian, for coming forward as a business person in our community. We appreciate your business in our community. Certainly, we're waiting for more direction from the government of Alberta as to how many stores will be allowed per, if they follow the Saskatchewan model. And the information I've received is we are up to 2 stores in Saskatchewan. So, for clarity's sake, we're waiting very patiently. I can share with you, as I've shared with council and other people that have asked, we believe the House resits and the Saskatchewan legislature resits on March 10th. After that time, we expect the government of Saskatchewan will bring forth their regulations and laws that they're proposing for cannabis retail and things like that. That'll include the age. At that time, and hopefully if we've got all the pieces from Alberta by then, thereabouts, our bylaw folks will, legislative services will work on a bylaw proposal that will need to come forward. As you're aware, there is a moratorium in place, and I want to say till the 1st of June, give or take. And we also are waiting for the federal government, because I know everybody wants to line up for retail, but until it's proclaimed, there will be that magic date in there. So I hope that answered your questions indirectly. We're not firm, and I think that's the one challenge that this council wants to make sure that we do it right for both sides of our city, because we deal with 2 provincial jurisdictions. And I'd like to remind people that are present and maybe watching this on Facebook, however they're watching it, is that the federal government sets the first set of rules, the province and the laws of the land, followed by the provincial government, and we follow up with the bylaws that we have control over. So there's a step process, and certainly it's challenging as we continue to wait for the upper echelons to feed it down to us, and we're left at the end of the day leaving you folks in the retail side of the world waiting to get to work so you can make sure that you are law-abiding, you're following the rules, and appreciate your comments that you've shared. And by all means, we are being as diligent as we can be, but we want to do it right and only once, rather than make exceptions to the rule. And we know that in the past that hasn't worked. We want to make sure we do it exactly as best as we can to meet all the laws that are required. I hope that summarizes what Councilor Thorson and our fellow Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to share like a small piece of advice we received from one of the municipalities we talked to in Colorado when we were on a conference call with them with the Mid-Size Mayor's Caucus of Alberta. And their main piece of advice was start small, start heavily regulated, and start peeling them back as you go. And I think that's really the approach that we intend to take as much as possible. So this moratorium really is, let's have all our ducks in a row, have as regulated as possible, potentially as few of stores as possible right off the bat. We'll see about what that number lands on depending on what Alberta says we can have, and I'm pretty sure we all don't want to have the most cannabis retailers per capita. I don't think any of us would go around cheering about that. But yeah, the point being is start small. You know, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so take our time and do it right rather than, I don't know, Wild West style. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, I want to gather as much information on this as I possibly can going forward so we can make the most informed decision we possibly can. So, Ian, what are the things in your mind? I mean, we heard the Youth Council's perspective. They gave us some direction as to things they would like to see and things they would not like to see. From your perspective as a business owner in town with this coming forward, can you give us some insight as to the things that are going to be most important to you, things that you think we should consider, you know, whether it's zoning or any of that kind of stuff? Obviously, you have an interest and an opinion here, and I would be glad to hear it.
Yeah, Your Worship. As far as they had lots of good points for sure, and I mean, I want to be on the same page. Some of the stuff they said is already not allowed. Drive-throughs are not allowed. And like I say, Friday, they came up with a bunch of regulations and rules that I didn't get a chance to get to you guys. But Alberta's basically got it cut and dried already. And I just haven't had a chance to go through it all. But it's pretty strict rules and regulations. And I want to be on that same page. But like I say, I can give them the information to go on, and it'll answer some of their questions too, because I know for sure the drive-through thing is not going to happen in Canada.
Concerns from you on things that you necessarily don't want to see this council put into a bylaw? Do you have some of those?
I guess you're going to go through the Alberta stuff anyways and basically follow it, and it's pretty strict. As far as distances, it's 100 meters from a school or a medical facility is what they put. Not that you guys are going to follow all their rules either, right? But that is what they put on there, is 100 meters from any school or medical facility.
You know, from a pro-business standpoint in the chair I sit in, you know, as much input as I can gather from interested parties is what I want, right? I self-admittedly don't know anything about what we should or shouldn't be doing here. I haven't made up my mind about what we should or shouldn't be doing here, but as much more information as I can get will help me get there. Just that's why I'm asking you things that you think are important.
Yeah, and again, I haven't gone through a bunch of this either because I got it Friday and I had previous engagements this weekend and couldn't get through it. But from what I've read from this, I'm going to follow what the government says, and I'm not disagreeing with most of it because it's online with what I think should happen too. I mean, you got to control it and be safe about it.
Yes, Peter.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mr. McCoy. The one big issue out there, whether you're for or against it, isn't the issue right now. The issue is, how are they going to enforce it? When you talk to the police, how are they going to enforce this? You can have all the rules in the world, but if there's no way to police it, and we're going to have, I'm not a medical man, but impaired drivers, whether it be alcohol, drugs or whatever on the highways, until they can figure out a way to deal with that, the rest of it really doesn't much matter. Because if we're going to, as municipalities and as a country, allow people to use this product and go on the highways impaired, what have we been doing for the last 30 years with enforcement and seat belts and zero weight and like it's a mixed bag here. And, you can talk, I'm sure, to the chief of police here, and they might tell you that to date they don't really have real solutions to how they're going to. Now that could change. I'm not saying it won't, but as of the last hearing that I heard from the chief of police, they really don't have that pinned down. So I don't really believe that this can go anywhere. It shouldn't go anywhere until such times as they know what they're doing on the legal end of it from policing as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Baker, I agree with the testing of it. They don't have a clear-cut way of doing it, so how they're legalizing it before they have that is beyond me, but it should be in place too. But
hopefully, yeah.
I think we've identified areas that are well out of our control, but we would fall into our responsibilities, Councilor Baker's often alluded to. Certainly, there's some challenges that we continue to work through, and that's, as we stated earlier, I think that I appreciate you coming to speak on behalf of the retailer. It gives us some good information, but at the same time, we also are waiting patiently for Saskatchewan to finish it off because of ensuring, as you can appreciate, trying to be as fair to retailers and individuals on both sides of the border. Because I don't know what they're going to come up with for final regulations, and when they do, then I guess we'll deal with it. We know we deal with it already on other fronts in the city, and we'll continue to deal with it as best as we can. Any other questions for Mr. McCoy? Thank you very much for your presentation, sir, and thank you for taking the time and being patient with us here this afternoon as we work through the public presentations.
thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Thank you.
I'd like to again say thank you to all the presenters today. It's always good to hear from the public. As council, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to hear your points of view and information that you present. Looking at the agenda, I believe we've covered off all agenda items. Moving on to inquiries from the media, unless I missed something. All good. And I will look to the inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, there are requests for yourself, Mayor Alders, as well as Councilors Forson, Munro, and Baker.
All right, thank you very much. I will look to council for direction for a short recess. Councilor Fagnan, moved, seconded by Councilor Monroe. All in favor of recess? Carried.